Do you ever see a successful woman on your feed or in a magazine and think, wow, it must be nice to have it so easy? Well, think again. Behind that glossy cover or smiling face is a ton of hard work, countless failures, and endless learning experiences. I'm Rebecca Minkoff, and I'm here to tell you that success isn't a walk in the park. It takes grit, resilience, and a willingness to take risks. That's why I created Superwoman, a podcast that peels back the varnish and gets into the nitty-gritty of what it takes to make it as a woman in today's world. From luminaries and game changers to women you've never heard of but should, this podcast is here to inspire you to take your next leap, no matter how daunting it may seem. We'll explore the sacrifices these women have made, the highs and lows they've experienced, and the lessons they've learned along the way. So if you're ready to be inspired and learn from some of the most successful women out there, join me on Superwomen. Together, we'll uncover the stories behind the successes and prove that with hard work, determination, and a little bit of luck, anything is possible. Sponsored by Magnum Ice Cream. Magnum Ice Cream believes in more chocolate, more sauces, and more of what makes you, you. Discover a world of indulgence. Enjoy Magnum's rich chocolate flavors in a small, snackable size, sweet, creamy, and decadent. The layered mini ice cream treats are the perfect mini indulgence for whenever your chocolate cravings strike. Calling all cookie lovers, indulge in the new Magnum white chocolate and cookies. Crafted with velvety vanilla ice cream swirled with a decadent chocolate ganache, dipped in luscious white chocolate and coated with rich dark chocolate cookie pieces. With only 150 calories per bar, these are the perfect mini treat to share with loved ones. Discover a fun-sized golden ratio and pamper your taste buds with Magnum Mini Double Caramel. Classic vanilla bean ice cream is wrapped in a lusciously sweet caramel sauce and dipped in a gooey, chocolatey layer before being covered again in a 44% cacao milk chocolate shell. When it comes to self-expression, indulgence, and chocolate, more is more with Magnum Ice Cream. Hey everyone, you're listening to Superwomen. Today's guest is Tori Dunlap, the founder of Her First 100K. I was incredibly intrigued with Tori when I came across her, I think on Instagram, and she was giving real actionable tips for finance. Stuff that no one talks about, that no bankers ever told me. Cut to, I had the incredible opportunity to meet Tori at a female founder collective retreat, and she shared not only wonderful wisdom with regards to personal finance, but also social media and how to build a scalable brand as the face and namesake. She has amazing advice. She has a great heart, and she is a knowledge geyser, if you will, in the finance world. She's an author, podcaster, so take a listen to this episode. It's a good one. Tori, welcome. Long time coming. I was a guest on your podcast, and I've been excited for this interview, so thanks for joining today.
Thank you for having me. It's good to see you as always.
So I first got to know of you because Instagram served you up to me because it knew that I needed to get all my financial advice from Instagram. And then I had the pleasure of meeting you at our Female Founder Collective retreat. We've obviously stayed in touch. I listened to your book. And I just would love, I'm so curious, like what got you into money? What got you into finance, and how did you get started?
Yeah, I mean, if you would have told me even like 6 years ago that this would be the path my life would take, I would have laughed in your face. This was not part of the plan. I studied theater, be an actor. Like that was the plan for a really long time. I studied theater and organizational communication in college, and then got to college and was like, okay, I'm going to be a marketer, which is like theater, but more directly profitable. It was like, okay, that's more dependable. I can still storytell. I can still kind of perform, but in a different way. So yeah, I graduated college though in 2016. I was 21, and then thinking I was going to be in a country with our first female president. And of course, that's not what happened. And I was coming into adulthood and really into womanhood in a very different country than I think a lot of us expected. So I was trying to figure out what kind of person do I want to be? What do I stand for? And the election really radicalized me. And I started realizing that that financial education I had from my parents that I took for granted, that I thought, okay, everybody knows not to overspend on credit cards and everybody knows how to save money, was in fact a privilege and was not normal, because I was the friend all of my friends were coming to for advice and guidance around money. So when I was living my own life and I was able to leave toxic jobs I didn't want to stay in because I had savings or start a business or to donate to causes I believed in or traveled, I started realizing that money was options. Money meant options and freedom and flexibility, and that maybe getting more money into more women's hands could change the equality picture, not just at the individual level, but at the systemic level. So started the company that later became her first 100K on the side of my 9 to 5 in marketing, grew it over time. 2019 hit my own 100K goal. Went to Europe to celebrate, got the call for Good Morning America in a pub in London, came home, did the interview, and quit my job 3 weeks later. And the rest has kind of been crazy since then. So we have over 5 million social media followers, a community of 5 million women. We teach them how to save money, pay off debt, start investing, start businesses. We have the #1 money podcast for women in the world called Financial Feminist. I'm a New York Times bestselling author of this book by the same name. And this is what I believe I was put on this earth to do, is fight for women's financial rights.
So do you have any theses on why we're not taught this? Because it's not like you see in school, they pull the boys aside and they go, we're going to teach you about money and we're not going to teach them. I can't remember getting different messaging, other messaging, but I still know that I still don't know shit about, right, this subject.
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't, of course, there's not that in schools where it's like, okay, we're going to just teach the boys. That's the first problem, is it's not taught in schools, but that is often where the conversation stops. The amount of people who, meet me for the first time and they're like, oh gosh, if I had only learned that in school. And I'm like, yes, but also I learned pre-calculus in school. I could not tell you anything about pre-calc right now. Right?
Like, or how it was helpful to you.
Right. Plenty of us get sexual education. I went to a Catholic school, so I got abstinence only sexual education. That wasn't very helpful either, right? And if we liken it to just, okay, well, it needs to be taught in schools, who's going to teach it? How is it going to be taught? Is it going to be taught by someone who preaches Dave Ramsey and it's all about shame and deprivation and evangelical Christianity? Or is it going to be more inclusive than that? Right. So like I call it the fallacy of financial literacy. Yes, it would help a ton to get, personal finance education in schools, but it's not the most helpful thing. I think to your point, no, there wasn't any time, hopefully, where somebody was like, okay, we're going to specifically teach boys this and not girls. But really that does happen. It happens at a societal level. We as a culture will not talk about money. We'll talk about any other uncomfortable topic before we'll talk about money. But it is more socially acceptable for boys and then men to talk about money, to go out on the golf course and to make business deals or to talk about, their bonus that they brought in last year. But women, it's very still taboo. And I have an entire book about this, but we talk in the book specifically about how this, socialization around money is gendered. For men, it's about making more money, expanding, right? So it is about negotiating your salary or investing in the stock market or investing in real estate or starting a company. But the advice for women is spend less. It's not make more. It's not make strategic decisions. It's that Dior purse is the reason you're not rich, right? Or the latte or the manicure. So then we're shamed for our spending and told it's frivolous. But frivolous spending, I'm putting that in quotes, is not NFL season tickets or golf clubs. It's things that are stereotypically feminine. So I think that this advice is the kind of thing that we do get ingrained to us as we grow older. Is yes, there was no, conspiracy of like, we're teaching boys, but not girls. And yet it's just more socially acceptable for men to talk about money, for men to make money. We worship men with money in this country, but we feel really weird when women make money and talk about making money. Yeah. And you know this better than anybody else. Like especially entrepreneurship, I show up very unabashedly talking about, I'm a multimillionaire, talking about how our company is a multi-million-dollar company, and it makes a lot of people uncomfortable. Meanwhile, there's dudes online who are like, I made $500,000 last month drop shipping, and all the comments are like, good for you, dude, that's incredible, right? So there is just this massive double standard when it comes to how we view women with money, how we as women pursue money or don't pursue money, and how we associate, certain genders with money.
Yeah. And dare I say, I feel like here you are teaching women about money, right? You cross the divide from not having to having, and you get attacked for bragging and it's like, I'm here to fucking teach you. And now you're going to attack me because you couldn't figure it out. And then it's like, we can't win.
I think
and it's women doing that to other women.
It's women. And I don't blame women. My empathetic view of it, when I get to put on my empathy hat and when I'm not angry, it's we've been told there's one seat at the table. We've been told there's one seat at the table for women, and folks of color feel this even more intensely. And so you see another woman standing unabashedly in her power and very confident, and who likes herself and likes her body and likes her job and feels worthy of opportunity. And rather than see that as an opportunity for growth and learning, unfortunately, a lot of people, and especially a lot of women, because we've been socialized to see each other as the enemy, we look at somebody like that, like me or like you, and we go, oh, well, I'm going to tear this person down because that will make me feel better. That will accelerate my own career. So yeah, I get a lot of comments of women who are like, why are you bragging? Or like, I liked you until you started talking about how much money you made. And I'm like, okay, so if you can handle me at personal finance educator, but you can't handle me at personal finance educator who is transparent about money, like, we're not going to be friends. You can't have one without the other. So yeah, I think that is just a larger, again, conversation about men are encouraged to pursue money. They're encouraged to talk about money, and they are rewarded actively for the pursuit of money and for becoming rich. And women aren't. And I say, fuck that double standard. And I'm doing whatever I can do to eliminate it.
And doing it well. So let me go back to your mindset. You're in a pub in London. You're celebrating the fact that you have $100,000 saved. Is that correct?
Yep.
You get the call. You go on the Today Show, or was it, GMA or Today Show?
GMA. Yeah,
GMA.
Doesn't matter.
Don't tell them that.
I know.
What happens from there? Because I think that, well, two questions. Some people think they're going to get that one hit and then everything goes. But you had to have known, okay, I have 100 grand in the bank that's going to last me X amount of time. Here's the inbound that's coming. So what did that picture look like for you?
I love this question. Thank you for asking it. I don't get asked this enough. I get asked a lot, when is the right time to quit my job and go all in? Right. That's the question people ask. So I haven't told this story a lot publicly. My 100K at 25, I had this, successful side hustle that was starting to get more traction. I, was getting to the point where I had $100,000 in the bank / invested. It wasn't all, just sitting in a checking account. And, I was making a good chunk of money and had momentum in the business.
In
but
your
my
business
job
or your job? When you say
in the business, but the job hated it. My 9 to 5 did not like it. My boss was very celebratory of me, which I really appreciated, and was very supportive. But I worked at a startup where, the 3 co-founders were running the whole company, and the other 2 did not like it. And I thought it was very interesting that we had straight white men in their 40s and 50s who felt threatened by a 24-year-old woman, but girl, come on. I was like 24. And I got the call for GMA, and, I had been on CNBC and Market Watch and The Cut at this point. So I had gotten some pretty decent media attention, and every time it did not go over well at the company. And I remember, like it was yesterday, getting the call and being so excited. And they asked me to come to New York and shoot it in studio. And I remember thinking, if I do this, my job won't like it. Like, it's unlimited PTO. I can take PTO for whatever reason I want. But if I go, it's going to be a whole thing. So I didn't go. I did it like in my apartment, and it was great. It was fine. But it was the classic version of like everything I was preaching, which was money gives you options, money gives you flexibility. I was still making choices I didn't want to make, or that I was forced to make, because I felt like I needed this job. So I went on GMA, and, I was really excited, and I was planning on staying at least another 6 months at my job. Like, at least. I had 100K in the bank, and I had told myself that that was the amount of money I needed to quit. And yet I had still convinced myself, because I'm the person that like needs the backup plan and the backup plan to the backup plan, that it wasn't time yet, because, I need my health insurance and I needed all of that. And so when I got home from Europe, did my, big splashy GMA feature, I kind of had to keep it quiet, but it got out. And rather than be really excited for me, one of the co-founders, I don't know, made up. He said that I had used their PR company to get that opportunity for myself, which was completely not true. And having men who had already sold companies and established companies and had raised millions of dollars in venture capital, like, see me as a threat rather than an asset, I think is absolutely stupid. And I was so, I didn't want to get in trouble. I was still playing good girl when I was 25, and didn't want to get fired, and went to my boss and had a conversation with him, and he didn't even know what was going on, which could tell you a lot about the HR at this place. But I sat down with him and had a conversation, and I was like, hey, I've heard through the grapevine that this is what they're accusing me of, and this is not true. And he was great. We had a really honest conversation, and he was like, entrepreneur to entrepreneur, I think it's time. I think you should do it. Like, go for it. You have money in the bank. You have momentum. I think we both don't really see a path forward here. Like, as much as we'd like to keep you, like my other co-founders, I think it's really difficult, and I've really tried to mitigate this, but it's hard. And so go for it. Meanwhile, I had my parents calling me and going, you need to do whatever you have to do to keep your job. You need to keep your health insurance, and you need to keep your, your stable paycheck. And I submitted my notice, and literally that was November of 2019.
Wow.
And, December was Christmas. January was like the first full month of, entrepreneurship, January 2020. And I made more money in Q1 of 2020, even as the world was falling apart, than I did. That was more than my corporate salary for the year.
Wow.
And I was like, cool, I can make this work. I was getting paid, $77,000 at corporate. I made $77K in my business in the first, 3 months. And I was
what were you selling in those first 3 months?
Yeah, great question. So for a really long time in 2019, I was just doing money coaching, like literally, okay, Rebecca, I'll take you out to coffee and we'll sit down and I'll get paid $47 an hour and we'll do money coaching. So that's what it was for a while. Then I increased my prices to $97 an hour. Then I realized it wasn't sustainable, and that most people were asking the same questions, even if they thought they were, unique questions. 90% of what I would cover with that same person, I would cover with the next person. So then we turned that into a personal finance 101 workshop. Did that workshop for a while. Then I turned it into a course in 2020, sold the course. And then a huge chunk of that course became my book. So that's the great way, especially if you're like a coach or a service provider, to one, basically get paid to beta test, which was fantastic. But also I was building my own confidence. Like, I was building my own confidence in knowing how to do this, knowing what to present, being like, oh, when I use this metaphor, that really helps somebody understand. And so I was building my own repertoire of talking about money, of talking about budgeting and investing. So I could then turn it into a workshop, into a course, into a book. So that was the business model for a while, until I realized it was unsustainable. And then I launched my first course with my friend, Alexis Rockley, in 2020. It was called Master Your Money. She's a positive psychology coach. So she did the money mindset side. I did the nitty gritty actionable side. And our first launch, it's so cute when I look back on it, but I remember thinking, this is more money than I've ever seen in my entire life. It was $22,000 and we split it.
Wow.
So, by January 10th, I had 11,000 in the bank and was feeling pretty good about my decision to quit.
So going back to right before you quit, you have your parents, who I'm sure you value their opinions to some degree.
Yep.
Telling you health insurance is key, which I feel like the amount of people that don't quit their job because of health insurance blows my mind.
Wild.
Because I'm like, if you are a generally healthy person, and you're going to be fine. But the health insurance thing, I think there needs
also a write-off. You get to write it off.
Right.
So,
or start a health savings account, but that's probably another podcast. So you're sitting there, you're ready. Your boss is telling you go forth, and your parents are saying no. What gave you that okay, I'm doing it and I'm scared?
I'm trying to put myself back in that mindset, because it feels like it really wasn't that long ago. It was less than 5 years ago, but it feels like forever ago. I think I needed a different adult to tell me. Like, honestly, because I still felt like a kid. Like, I was still making a lot of decisions based on what somebody else wanted for me rather than what I wanted for me. And I'm really thankful to that boss who I think saw what I wanted. And, he wasn't stupid. He knew that this was a job until I could start my own business. And so I think that like that permission slip was really important for me. But I also just realized, again, as someone who's always chosen the stable option, entrepreneurship felt terrifying. It felt terrifying to do.
Well, it feels terrifying to most people.
Right. But when I looked at it on paper, everything was, I had my ducks in a row. I had money in the bank again and momentum and a business that was already doing well. It wasn't just like an idea, or it wasn't, I had everything I needed to succeed. And then, okay, let's say I didn't, or let's say I hated it. I go back to corporate and I work corporate. Right. Like I had that option. And, I often jokingly call my parents up and I'm like, hey, remember that terrible advice you gave me? What if I would have listened? But I think it was just that moment, and as cheesy as it sounds, where I realized I needed to bet on myself. The other thing I think that was really powerful that I grasped onto at that time, I kept saying to myself, if I'm getting this much done working 15 hours a week on this, imagine if I'm able to work a full 40 or 40 plus, but like, imagine if I'm able to actually dedicate all of my time to this. If it's already going, and for me, it was going well at that time, I was making 45, 50K. I felt pretty good about that. If I'm able to do that amount of money, just half-assing this, what happens if I'm able to dedicate my whole time and also maybe eventually be able to hire a team and maybe grow it from there? So yeah, I think that gave me a lot of comfort because I knew my own capability. I knew that if I gave myself even more time, well, there's no way this couldn't work. And again, if it didn't, I go back to corporate. It's fine.
Yep. I feel like not enough people hang on to that. Like, I can always go get another job. Not that jobs are so easy to come by, but at least, like you have a saleable skill set, you can find something.
Yep.
So I'd love to talk through, as you scaled the business, how did you know how to do that? Because it's not like you got to go to entrepreneur school.
No, and I was not at Female Founder Collective at the time, so I did not have that resource either. I think a lot of it was I just ran a really fucking lean business. Like, I think that is one massive tip I can give to people. Is if you're scared about cash flow, if you don't really, you didn't get an MBA, and I would argue MBAs aren't really that useful anyway in the real world, but I just ran a really lean business, and I was really strategic about when and how I invested in the business. I invested in people. And the other thing I was really smart about that, again, didn't realize that's what I was doing, is because I didn't have a lot of money, I couldn't hire somebody who was the expert who was going to charge me 150, 200K a year. I hired really smart, really hardworking girls that were younger than me, 20, 21, 22, who, a huge chunk of our company is marketing. So I was hiring people that I, weren't that expensive, but that I spent time on. And I jokingly called them Frankensteins. Like, I could Frankenstein them into what I needed. And so I think that is kind of, when you're first starting out, that's kind of your option, is you either are throwing money at your business in order to see it succeed. And a lot of startups do this, right? With the VC or with Facebook ads. I've still never purchased a social media ad, and I'm really proud of that. So my choice was, okay, I don't have that kind of money, so I'm going to grow it through giving my energy and my time into the business, but also into the people I'm hiring. I can't afford someone who's an expert, so I'm going to teach them what I know and pour into them and turn them into the kind of marketers that I need. And I did that for a couple of years. And that was, I think, one of the smartest decisions I made, because I didn't have the capital to be able to hire somebody to swoop in and do it.
So what would you say the biggest differences are between you starting at 24 to now? You have a very successful business. I love the face. We're going to go into that face.
Yeah.
You have the podcast, Financial Feminist. You have the book. You have this huge platform. And yet I think we all believe this Kool-Aid that at some point it gets easier, or when you get there, it's going to be better. And you and I have shared this offline, like, it's still fucking hard. It's still a slog sometimes. And we still are like, when do we see that finish line? So what does that look like for you now?
I say this with the least amount of pessimism possible because I do love my life and I love our business. It was a lot easier in the first year, like so much easier and like more fun because it was just like, oh, everything's going well. And that was like a surprise. And it was so exciting. It was like, oh, I can make this work. Okay, cool. I'm actually really good at this. I can do this. And then it gets to a point where, you know, you've been at it for a couple of years and you start having to, I mean, the biggest thing is you start having people directly rely on you. It was contractors before and, you know, I didn't have a problem paying them and of course still don't now, but like we pay health insurance, we pay 401ks, we pay, you know, multiple 6-figure salaries. So I think that the motivation has changed. My motivation as, you know, a good personal finance expert in the beginning was, yes, let's make an impact, let's grow a business, but also anything that I made in profit went immediately into my bank account. And that was fucking cool. And that's the reason I went from $100,000 at 25 to multi-millions at 27. Like, there's a reason that happened in 24 months. And it was because the business was succeeding. And then anything that wasn't taxes or expenses just went into my bank account. That doesn't happen anymore. It goes into reserves in case we have a shitty quarter or a bad year. So
when did you change that? Because I'm just curious because I think after 20 years in business, we're still in that mindset that you had.
I think probably when I was like 28.
Okay.
When it was like, okay, I am actually financially taken care of now, at least in my current lifestyle. Yeah. So I'm going to keep paying myself a salary, obviously, and keep, you know, making sure that I am able to afford my own life, but then starting to invest more in the business and thinking strategically about that. Yeah, I think it's just so different. I'm turning 30 in like fucking 3 weeks, and having a whole crisis about that, which you and I should talk about offline. But you learn by doing. And then the thing that blew my mind that I literally just learned 6 months ago is it's not about avoiding fires. It's about understanding that a fire is always going to happen and that you're going to have to figure out how to put it out, and you figured out how to put it out before, so it's going to be okay. Like, something about that blew my mind again, even like 6 months ago, because last year was a hard year for us. Went through a lot of team changes. We had lower revenue than we had in 2024 and much lower profits. And so, you know, it just kept like feeling like all these fires are coming up. And every time one would come up, I'm like, okay, I just need to get through this one. And I'd put it out, and then another would come up and I'm like, why? We're doing this again? And then finally, after one, I had made it through just fine. And two, realized they're going to keep coming up. Did I realize again that, oh, it's not about avoiding fires. It's not about not starting them, because sometimes I don't have control over that. It's about just knowing, okay, it's eventually going to happen again, and you have the tools to handle it. I'm trying to remember your original question. I don't know. A lot's changed. I think a lot's changed since I was, you know, focused on, it was fun. And it still is fun. It's just fun in a different way. It's more, it's like not this surprise anymore. I can predict our revenue pretty well. The seasonality of the business, like I know all of that now. So it's just the game changes. The rules change a little bit. It's not just about you and about, you know, oh, that worked. Cool. Well, let's just keep doing that. It's more like, okay, I know the stuff that works, and we're just going to keep doing that and reinvent when we need to. I don't know if that answers your question.
It does. But I'm curious. No, you answered it. But I'm curious now, like, what is now fun for you? What is the fun you're finding in it now?
We're literally building like something we've never built before, which is like a membership. So that's something we've never done. We've done like the courses, and, you know, we have our stock market school membership, but we're building that out. And then we're building another one that's going to launch hopefully in January of this upcoming year. So like, that's really fun because I've never done it. I feel like some of the best entrepreneurship advice I can give is, yes, this is high stakes, but it's a game. Like, I view this all as a game. Yeah. And I don't mean it in a frivolous way where I don't care about people's livelihood or anything. I mean, hey, if I throw this lever, what happens? And there's something so fun about that. where it's like, oh, if I do this thing, I'm able to make $10,000 in 2 hours. Or if I try this thing, oh, it doesn't work, but let me tweak it a little bit and see what happens. Or, oh, we've got 5 days left in the month and we're at, I don't know, $495,000 in revenue. Let's see how we get to 515. Like it just becomes a game.
I think it's the way it has to be for it to be enjoyable, right? Then you're not like, I'm the effect of everything and this is so serious, but it is a game, right? At the end of the day, we're all playing these games and
back to, again, putting my personal finance expert hat on, the only way it's a game is if you know your numbers.
Right.
And way too many entrepreneurs don't know their numbers because they are right brain people who are like, well, I'll just bring on somebody left brain to handle it. And it's like, yeah, you can do that. And that's smart. But also like, come on, you need to know a bit about what's going on in your business. Like you need to know your numbers, even if you're not the person, in the spreadsheets all the time, you need to have a general understanding of how your business is doing. And, for me as still, I'm in the CEO role, like it is about knowing what's going on in the business, even as my COO, who you've met, is handling the kind of back end of it. So yeah, I think that knowing my numbers always really important for any entrepreneur, but then it becomes a game. It becomes this fun little thing where, okay, that didn't work. Let me try it this way. And throwing spaghetti at a wall is weirdly the enjoyable part.
So what would you sell someone? And I'm an easy whatever. I go on Instagram and I'm like, oh, he's selling products on Amazon. Maybe that's the ticket. Or, oh, she's investing in whole life insurance, or she's 401k or the Roth IRA. Pay your kids. Like, I'm like, oh my God, look at all these shiny objects, right?
Yeah.
What would you tell the person that's easily overwhelmed with the sheer amount of humans in the world that are giving their advice? And, you're supposed to listen to your banker, but like, they've never told me anything that I have found helpful, to be honest. It's all been
I would agree with
Instagram
that.
telling me about the write-off you get when you purchase a car, like all that kind of stuff.
I know. I just discovered that one fairly recently too. I think that first of all, there's a lot of information and some of it's great. I like to think the stuff we produce is pretty great. Some stuff is shit. So, whole life insurance is actually one of the examples. Really, really not great, especially like index universal life insurance, complete scam, total scam. And the reason people are talking about it is because they make really high commissions on it. So a lot of information. You need to ask yourself, as again, woo-woo as it sounds, but what does your intuition tell you? If somebody is like, you could get rich tomorrow, they're lying to you. Like that's just not true. If somebody's telling you, especially with like IUL, a lot of people go,
what's IUL?
Index universal life insurance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're like, the 401k is outdated. Invest in this thing instead. And I'm like, that's not true. That's not it. So a lot of information. First thing is it's like, okay, is this person trustworthy? Or what is my gut telling me? Great. Second thing, like perfect example is like the Roth IRA for your kids. There's a lot of content out there about, making your kids employees of the business without condoning child labor, but making them employees of the business and then being able to open and contribute to a Roth IRA for them. That's 100% legit. But if you didn't know if it was legit, go talk to somebody credible. Go talk to, if you do have a financial advisor, we've done content about it. Come, view that on our site. Like find somebody credible to get your information from, or go talk to another entrepreneur you admire and say, hey, do you know about this? And I think the other thing too is that you have to it's classic Ron Swanson. I want you to whole ass one thing rather than half assing a bunch of things.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there is this like squirrel tendency on the internet where it's like, oh, this thing and this thing and this thing. I would rather you focus your efforts, both personal finance and otherwise, on something that, just one thing and doing that really well than trying to dilute your energy and dilute your money and dilute your time into, oh, this is the new hot thing and this is the new hot thing. And I see this specifically when I was at the Net Retreat last year. I talked about my presentation. My keynote was all about, social media. And I think that's a perfect example of this too. Not just the consumption of social media, but like the new social media platforms that pop up. It's like, oh, should I be on Snapchat? And remember Lemon8 was a thing. And should I be on Reddit? And should I be on all these? It's like, I would rather you just focus on one and do it really well than trying to dilute your time and energy. And the same thing with personal finance, like focus on one goal at a time, focus on your emergency fund and then paying off your credit card debt and then investing for your retirement rather than trying to do all of those at one time.
Yep. So clearly the last couple of years you've been building, growing, it's your name, it's your company. How have you been at taking care of yourself and celebrating and taking your hard-won money? I see you go on great vacations, but like, do you feel like you have found that ratio for you of like work versus play and celebrating that?
As of literally probably a couple months ago, I'm feeling a lot better about it.
Okay.
I take Fridays off. They're not completely off. I'm still on my phone, but like I'm not at my desk.
Yeah.
My partner works a lot, but he's a civilian. He's not an entrepreneur. And so Fridays are our time together and we go do something fun and we alternate who plans it every week. And like, I look forward to that all week.
Yeah.
I think this sounds so ridiculous. Again, one of those entrepreneurship things that sounds so obvious when you say it out loud. If I have 2 hours free in the middle of the day, I don't work. I don't like invent work for myself. I don't like try to find something to do unless I need to get something done. But I used to feel like, oh, okay, I have these 2 hours and it's during the classic work day. So I'm going to sit here and make myself work harder. And it's like, no, Tori, you were working 3 hours this weekend on something. So you don't need to invent work for yourself. You've put in your time. You're fine. So I think that even in the last year has been a new awakening for me, is again, obvious as it sounds, but I would sit there and be like, oh, I have free time and it's 1 to 3 o'clock PM. And I'm like, no, we're going to go on a walk. We're going to watch an episode of something. We're going to do something else.
Yeah.
Rather than, because there's always a million tasks rather than doing your tasks right now that can wait. I have so many questions for you and have talked to you a bit about this. There is something beautiful about your business being your name and something, of course, incredibly challenging about that. I mean, her first 100K is right. It's not me, but really when people recognize me on the street, it's very rarely, hey, it's Victoria Noble Dunlap. It is, hey, her first 100K. So I think that people feel so connected to me and so passionate about every aspect of my life. And also people feel so connected to me and so passionate about every aspect of my life. And
it's like the Little Mermaid, right?
Sure. Yeah. It's challenging.
Blessing and a curse.
Yeah. So there's things that, even just me saying my partner, if people listen, they know I'm with somebody, but people don't know his name. People don't know what he does. People don't know his face. That was very intentional. Yeah. I think you often realize your boundaries, both as an entrepreneur and just as a person, because you overstep something that you didn't realize was a boundary and it feels gross. And you go, oh, that was a boundary. Interesting. And in 2020, I was very public about a relationship and I had a much smaller following then, and it ended and I was absolutely devastated and grieved the end of that relationship for 2 years. And well-intentioned people would be in my DMs being like, where is he? And I'm like, he's not here. Like, I'm not doing well. I don't need to be reminded he's not here. So that was a realization for me of like, oh, okay, if I find somebody and we end up, being together, and there's even a temptation of him, be showing up on Instagram, I'm not going to do it. So yeah, just setting boundaries is important. Realizing that not everybody's going to like you. Again, we all know this. This is embroidered on every throw pillow, but the internet's mean. People are mean. Not everybody's going to like you. Not everybody's going to like what you have to say. And there's a lot of people who like you for a while and then you do one random thing and somebody's like, I used to like you and now I don't. And you just have to let that go. And you just have to be good with what you're doing. And as long as you're satisfied with how you're showing up, there's nothing more you can do.
I love that. It's being true to yourself and keeping your own integrity. And as long as you got that, fuck the negative assholes on the trolling internet.
But it's really hard because the
hard.
men who are saying mean, like fat phobic, gross things, those are easy to ignore. But again, back to your original point, it's the women. It's the women that are really that get me more, where, you know, they're like, I used to like you and then you did this. And I'm like, I'm Leslie Knope at the end of the day. Like, I want you to like me. I you know, I want to be friends and I don't want to piss anybody off. But also, if I'm not pissing somebody off, I don't have a clear enough brand voice. I don't have a clear enough message. I shouldn't be everything to everybody because it makes me absolutely nothing to nobody.
Yep. I love it. So with that mic drop, I have 2 more questions for you, which I ask all my guests.
Yeah.
What is a piece of advice you've either learned the hard way or someone gave to you that you'd love to pass on?
Done is better than perfect. That is my number 1 rule as an entrepreneur. Get things done. Perfect is not achievable, and you will waste your entire life without launching anything or doing anything pursuing perfection.
So good. I used to feel that way. Like when we'd have to make these decisions, some person I was in business with wanted to debate it to death. And I'd be like, oh my God, let's just make the decision. If we're wrong, we can pivot. Like, but we can't just sit here for days circling, you know, we call it circling. And then my last question for you is, what would we be surprised to know about you?
Ooh, I love that question. I'm not just the money girl. Like, I love talking about money, but like, I am a full, complete person. I love cooking. My goal is to be on the Food Network someday. Like, that's a secret goal I have.
Yes, do it.
I love Jeopardy. That's another goal. I have all these goals that are like related to the business, but not really. Like, I want to be on Jeopardy. I want to teach Elmo to be good with money on Sesame Street.
Ooh,
like,
I feel like you could do that tomorrow.
Oh, I would die. I can't even talk about it without like tearing up, because Elmo was my favorite growing and still my favorite. So I have all of these like things that I love that I talk about a bit, but like, yeah, I just, any person out there, right? You are not just the fashion girl. You're not just the leather. Yeah. There's so many other things about who we are.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love food. I love traveling. That's probably pretty obvious. I'm a big plant mom. You can't see it, but I have like 50 plants in my house and probably just 20 in this room alone. Yeah. I would say food is the fun thing for me. Like, my goal is to be like a judge on Beat Bobby Flay. That would blow my freaking mind.
I love it. So where can everyone find you, follow you, sign up for your membership? All the handles, all the places.
I have to say, and I'm going to say this on mic, and I'm going to try to get through it without crying. You are the kind of woman that women need more of in their lives. Like, this is a very isolating thing, entrepreneurship, and what you've built and what you and Allie have done. And just, it's so necessary. And I just really, really thank you. Because it's just, we need more women being unabashedly themselves. And the only way we do that is by being in rooms with other women who are also doing the same thing. So
thank you. You're making me tear up too.
Oh, I'm just very thankful. And I want to give you your flowers because you deserve it. Her First 100K is where you can find me. HERFIRST100K.com. Did I spell first right? I just like blacked out. Her First 100K. I'm at Her First 100K.
Don't start a savings account. Okay.
I know. And then, my camera went out. That was perfect. And then, Her First 100K on all the socials. My book and podcast are called Financial Feminist. Come listen to Rebecca's episode of Financial Feminist. It's available wherever you're listening to your podcast right now.
Except don't listen to me talk about whole life insurance, because I guess I'm a sucker.
Oh, did you get whole life insurance? Oh no. We should talk about it.
We should talk about it. Yes. But anyways, thank you for being on here, and thank you for being vulnerable and sharing all this with me. And I'll talk to you soon. I just wanted to thank you guys for listening to today's episode. I also want to ask you to rate and review the show wherever you listen to podcasts. I know it's a pain in the butt, but it actually helps with search and algorithms. So if you love this podcast, it is an easy way to get it more visible and out there. I also want you to follow me on Instagram at Rebecca Minkoff, at RM Superwomen, and be sure to check out my book, Fearless, The New Rules for Unlocking Creativity, Courage, and Success. Thank you again, and you will hear from me next week.
Sponsored by Magnum Ice Cream. Our delicious layers of velvety ice cream, gooey sauces, and crackling Belgian chocolate are the perfect match for your girls' night or dinner party. From classics like mini double caramel to our new mini white chocolate and cookies, Magnum has a taste of unapologetic indulgence for everyone. Even when it's mini, it's more. More is more with Magnum Ice Cream.